Oh dear, I don't know where to start with this. Don't they look pretty? It's like lots and lots of meteor lights, because I've been buying quite a few of these meteor light strings off eBay. And I don't really know what to call this video. I think I might call it Everything You Didn't Want to Know About Chinese eBay Meteor Lights, because what a can of worms this is. You've already seen the video where one of them developed a fault and I fixed it, and yeah, no great deal, that's okay. But I've discovered so much more since, so much so that I'm glad it's the weekend and I'm having a nice glass of wine, because there is so much to say about these. So, everything you didn't want to know about Chinese meteor lights. To start off with, they're chainable. That's nice. Not all of them are chainable, but most of them seem to be chainable. And the ones, I'm going to divide this into two clumps here. These ones are chained off one power supply, and these ones are actually powered from these crocodile clips, and they're powered from my DC power supply. And it's currently set to 5 volts, and the voltage, the current should I say, is varying between about 10 milliamps and 100 milliamps, depending on how many LEDs are lit at a given time. And it's quite nice that I can turn the voltage down to about 3 volts. Yeah, see them getting dimmer? These ones getting dimmer? They're still lit, and outdoors they'd still look fine. But that's them down at 3 volts now. And that's nice. I like that. I like the fact you can run them in the 3 volts. You can run them, technically speaking, batteries, because the current is topping out about 10 milliamps. And that's nice. That's very good. However, these are designed to plug into this set, and this is where it all starts to go wrong. So I'll just disconnect these now, and I shall plug them into the other set and prepare for the burst of light, because I'm about to turn the lights on. Okay, so you just plug them into the extension, except that there's no polarizing pin, and these are DC, these are polarized, and this side is the wee notch that I'd normally associate with polarized DC Christmas lights, but this side doesn't, and it means you can put it in both ways round. And if you put it in on a decent power supply the wrong way round, there's no protection that I can see. It's going to blow the chips, and it's going to kill an entire string of these meteor lights. That's not very good. So first things first, you may want to get a meter and stick it to DC volts and get the connector, that the female end, the output, and being very careful. And I say being very careful because this is and this is the next thing, this is a mains voltage detection pen. Yeah, they're live at mains voltage. It's low voltage, but it's superimposed in the mains, but we'll cover that later. So here's the meter, and if you stick the probes in on DC volts, keep in mind that these may be referenced to the mains. You'll either get roughly anything up to, it'll vary, it'll be up to about 6 volts, and you'll either get a minus sign or it'll just be the voltage. In this case it's showing 4.9 volts roughly, so that's the correct polarity. So you can make a dot, as I have done, with a Sharpie on the negative side to show that that's the negative. Now, to find the corresponding polarity on the string you're plugging into it, and I've already done it in this one, so it's got the little black mark in it, but you can get a standard lithium cell, the little lithium 2032 button cell, and just jam it between the connections, because it's so incapable of current. That's obviously the wrong priority, because nothing is lighting up. I turn it round, and can you see that? I'll turn the light off and you'll see it. Now these are running, and these are actually running off that 2032 button cell. I can't say it would last terribly long, but it shows you the polarity. So this side is marked positive, the other side is negative, and that does correlate with what I marked it earlier. So that's the safest way to test them, because I can think of, because it is current limited. Maybe they are resilient, maybe just stuffing them in the wrong way round, and some of these power supplies, maybe they're current limited enough it's not going to blow the chips, but yeah, I don't really know about that. I don't particularly wish to try it because I don't want to blow up one of my sets of lights. So I'll plug these in, and it's quite nice. You can plug actually quite a lot of these in because most of the power supplies that come with these, you get two types, and they look identical. They look like the little USB power supplies, and one of them is based on a little switch mode USB power supply, and the other is very much not. So the nice thing is that you can load them up, and they're fairly overload intolerant, particularly the dodgy one, and you could probably run, you could probably plug in 100 strings, and they wouldn't be very bright, but they'd all run, because it's pretty much short circuit proof. And you could load it up to with as many as you wanted. Within moderation, they'd start getting dim after a while. But anyway, let's take a look inside these power supplies, because as I say, with this mains voltage warning device, anywhere near them, yeah, sorry if you had headphones on, I'm sorry about that, yeah, but the gist is these are potentially live at mains voltage. So let's get these out of the way. I'll unplug their power supply, this dinky little power supply. I'll put these out of the way at the moment. And let's take a look inside the power supplies. Let's take a look inside the nice power supply. And by nice, I don't actually mean that nice. It is a generic USB-ish type power supply. And inside is the little standard switching type circuit. And it's actually got a place for a USB socket. It's got a little power indicator LED, does it? Yes, it does have a little hole for a power indicator LED, so that's nice. It's potentially got a little red LED in it. That's a clue, in a sense, maybe, that this might be one of the safer power supplies, because we can't guarantee that the isolation in the windings is that great. They have at least tried to keep a modest separation underneath. There's a position for an opto-isolator, but it's just like bit weird. It's like blank pads. It's very odd. I might do a complete reverse engineer of this later on. It's quite interesting. It's a typical 2-transistor version. We've seen the similar circuits. But anyway, let's take a look in the other version, shall we, which is just much more exciting. Now, that one had a black strain relief. This one has a clear strain relief and no LED. I don't know if that's a guarantee that what you get is going to be safe or not. But let's open this one up. And inside is a mains voltage capacitive dropper. And it does have an LED. Isn't that kind of cute? They've added a little side glow to sort of fairy light LED for absolutely no obvious reason at all, because there's nowhere for it to actually glow out of. But it's an LED. It's quite nice. So let's reverse engineer this, shall we? Let's get the notepad. The main thing is that this doesn't have any separation from the mains, but let's just reverse engineer it anyway. So the mains comes in. So let's say live and neutral. It doesn't really matter because there's no guarantee of any polarity. So one of them goes to a big mofo capacitor. 2.2 microfarad. That's quite huge. Rated 400 volts, which is nice. It's probably rated if it is actually rated for that. And across it, it has that little discharge resistor. I'll have to zoom in that a bit. With the colour code green, brown, black. Okay, 510k. 510 kiloohms. Bear in mind this isn't 240 volts, this supply. It might use a bigger capacitor in the American version. Then it goes through a discrete bridge rectifier here, and the neutral goes straight to that rectifier. So that's AC in, positive out, negative out. It's done with 4 discrete diodes here, 1, 2, 3, 4. The output is from that rectifier is going to this capacitor, which is just kind of splayed right across them in an exciting manner. So it's a capacitor with a rating of 470 microfarad at 16 volts. The absolutely adorable LED they've added to it for no good reason at all has orange, black, red. That's an odd value. 3K? Yes. So they've got a 3K resistor, which is an odd value, in series with the power LED. And then across that they've got two, and I don't know why they've got two, Zener diodes. And the next to it's marked 6.2 volts. So let's just draw two Zener diodes. Two completely different styles of Zener diodes. I'm not sure why. I really don't get that at all. .2 volts. So that means that no matter what happens, even if that goes open circuit, and that is the output, plus volts and minus, then you're going to get about 6.2 volts across that, and it's never going to rise above that because these are Zeners and they'll clamp it to that level. I really don't know why. Look at that. They've just they've got this big black one and this sort of standard glass passivated red one. I don't know why they've done that. They're both just in parallel on the back. Very odd. So to do the maths on this circuit, to see what sort of current is available, I've actually pre-done the maths because I found this quite intriguing, and you know, I've been deliberating this video for a while because it's just so many facets to it. So XC equals 1 over 2 pi FC, 2 pi FC, where pi is 3.14, F is the frequency, which in the UK is 50 Hz, and C is the value of capacitance, and XC is what would be the equivalent of putting a resistor in series. So XC, we'll just call it R, the resistance, equals 1 over 2 times 3.14, which is pi, times 50, which is the mains frequency, times 0.000, am I going to run out of space here? 0.022, which is measured in farads, but obviously it's 2.2 microfarads, so that's 2,200 nanofarads. But so that's basically it represented as farads, lots and lots of zeros. So R, when we calculate that out, equals 1 divided by 0.000698, which means R equals 1,447 ohms. So the equivalent reactance at that frequency of this capacitor is 1,447 ohms. It's equivalent of having a resistor in, but it doesn't get hot, which is quite nice. So if we then work out the current that's, we could say, I could say the mains voltage is about 240 volts, but the final voltage is so low here that we might as well just say it's 240 volts. So the current, I equals V over R, which is 240 volts over the 1,447 ohms, equals 0.165 amps. Now let's test that actually. Let's test that. The nice thing about the capacitive power supplies is you can effectively just short them out. They're like a resistor in series the mains, but because they're actually, the way they work is it's basically charge transfer on plates. It lets a little pulse through of energy on each half cycle. So let's get this power supply, and I'll disconnect it, making sure it's polarity marked first. So this is a power supply, and keep in mind that it is reference to mains voltage. I shall just short circuit it completely. Actually, we'll measure the voltage across it first. Let's stick this to DC volts. And that's the positive and that's negative. So this should be about 6 volts-ish. 6.2 volts. Look at that. Those Xeners are so good. Actually, it's 6.18 volt. That's pretty good though. That's really quite impressive. Now let's stick this to, let's keep the probes in, right? And being careful not to do anything hideous. I'll pull that probe out and I'll stick it to the 10 amps range. I'll stuff it in there. And it shows the short circuit current is actually 145 milliamps. So I came out in the maths at 165 milliamps, it's actually 145. But that's good enough. That's, you know, it's probably a tolerance, the capacitance, it's probably other factors. And of course that LED will be stealing a little bit current too, not an awful lot. I'll just make sure I stick my leads back in the volts section because you don't want to leave your meter, your multimeter, set to amps, with the leads in the amps position because it's a dead short circuit and it needs a little incidence. So yeah, this could theoretically run a few strings. I mean, they peak at about 100 milliamps, that's saying 165. So yeah, this is rated to run one string at full brightness, and as you plug more on, they're probably going to go a wee bit dimmer. But to be honest, the fact it's mains voltage makes me squirm a little bit. The fact it's referenced the mains, not overly keen on that, because when you're playing about with what appear to be, this looks to all intents and purposes to be a low voltage supply. Does it have a spec on it? It's got a wee label here. Let's take a look at that and see if I can even read that, because it's a... Oh, it's just a USB power supply case. It says mains in output DC 4.2 volts plus or minus 0.5 volts DC 500 milliamps. Oh, this is just a universal case for like lithium chargers and USB power supplies and everything. It's just a mishmash. But these all come, including the one with the switch mode power supply, these all come in the same box, which just says LED buzzing. Buzzing being the sensation you get if you touch any of the wires. And the instructions on the side just do not relate in any way to these meteor lights. They're generic instructions which relate to replacing a lamp in a string of tungsten fairy lights. So, yeah, interesting. I mean, they look great, and the fact they operate quite happily at the low voltage. I mean, let's hold on. Let's connect all these up just to my power supply. So this is I'll put negative onto this. Turn the power supply on. This is still set for 3 volts. And if I turn the light off now, yeah, they're all visibly, they're not super bright, but it does suggest that current voltage, now they're about, they're sort of averaging about 30 milliamps because there's 3 sets, 24 in total. This does suggest that, you know, for a start, you could run these off a USB power supply. You could run quite a lot of these off a USB power supply. That's them up at 5 volts now. But you could also run them across some batteries if you wanted them in a remote location. They're not a huge current demand. You could even consider running them actually across a solar panel and a lithium cell. That's an interesting idea, isn't it? That's almost a project in its own right, isn't it? That is an interesting project. Solar panel. Recycled telephone, you know, mobile phone lithium cell. That is an interesting project. I might give that a go, in fact. That's quite interesting. I'll keep that in mind. But yeah, they're interesting. They're very modular. They're very hackable, and you know, you can use your own power supplies with them, or the original power supplies that came with them. But as I say, just keep in mind that the power supplies that come with them are potentially just a little bit dodgy. So if you saw the video where I open one up and fix it, just keep in mind that if it's lit, if it's plugged in, then pretty much it's at mains voltage potentially, so just take care with that. But yeah, interesting stuff regardless. I quite like these. You know, every video I just say, oh yeah, I kind of like these. Yeah, to be honest, I like anything that lights up. And when it's dangerous, it just seems to make it better. Is that just weird? Yeah, it probably is.